Dot, 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 dot. Good morning, everybody. We're finally back in full swing. Thank you for being awesome this last week. Today, we're going to cover what four things investors know about coaching for their small business owners, the people that they've invested in. And we're going to cover how radio signals can actually help us put the internet all around the galaxy, as well as an awesome art book that is cross-stitched in CMYK color without a drop of ink. But before all of that, you know what we're going to do. Morning cup of gratitude. Yes, we've got a great show for you today. I'm excited that we've got our setup back. My computer's rebooted, and we've got just a normal morning of awesome study for you, taking you to the next level in your business by knowing and gaining what the four things are that investors know about coaching. And this is all about, like, today's lesson, this very brief lesson of the four things they know. We're going to drop those on you. But ultimately, hashtag normalize coaching. I have a coach. We need to normalize this because there's an entire generation coming up that are lost. They're highly skilled. But the internet has created, or our zeitgeist of today has created such a level of insecurity that they're performing lower than previous generations. They're making more money. But as a human, they're not expressing their fullness of self. They're exhibiting large amounts of neuroses, though they have the most amount of skills, the most amount of resources, and basically the most abundant life they ever could have wished for. Insecurity is a little high. We're going to touch on that. But before everything, we're going to cover a cup of gratitude. Grab your coffee, grab your tea, wherever you're at. Let's sit down together for just a minute and share what we're freaking grateful for this morning. I'll start. I'm absolutely grateful for the business that we have built. It's Friday. You can tell it's a little bit of a casual Friday. We've got a lot of work to do, but I am grateful that we've built the business that we've built, that we can kind of dictate how we do our life. Our employees can work from home. And that's not like a COVID thing. We've built a business that thrives that way and allows the employees to feel like, hey, I'm going to work from home today. Is that okay? And get a little bit of work-life balance while we still create stability on the business. And I'm grateful for that. We're getting a lot done, but I am massively grateful for the life and business we have built. I'm also grateful for my wife today. Being the polar opposite of that I am, we encounter, as you'd expect, many of those moments of conflict and disagreement. But instead of being polar opposites, we're actually just two puzzle pieces creating a better picture of what we could be. And I'm grateful that she brings to us what she brings to us all the time. We wouldn't be where we're at today without it. So I'm grateful for the type of business we build. I'm grateful for the type of partner I have, and I'm ready to kick off this day. What are you grateful for? Don't hesitate, my friends. Drop it in the comments, you lurkers, you creepers. I see your eyes beaded over here. I see all the lurking viewers. Tell me what you're grateful for today. I'd love to hear it. Let's talk about other news. Here we go. So an artist by the name of Evelyn Kazakov recently created what to me is one of the coolest pieces around. Now, nerd alert here. This is a massive catalog of stitched, you heard me, cross-stitched CMYK studies that merges printing and embroidery, and there is not a single drop of ink on this book. It's called the XXX Swatch Books, or the XXXX Swatch Book. There are variables throughout the entire book of different variations of CMYK. For those who don't know, nerd alert here, CMYK is print ink. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And these four colors are combined in a variety of ways to create the colors that we know. This book that Evelyn created has primary, secondary, and tertiary color studies. There's a full study of gradients, but keep in mind, this is all being done with yarn and embroidery in stitch ink, or stitch. There is zero ink. The artist covers 4 base tones, 16 elements, 400 different swatches of color, and all told, there's 219,647 different stitches. She calls it a 3-dimensional color study. And the spine of the book itself is a vibrant gradient of CMYK. I've got to drop this in here, and you've got to see this thumbnail because it was the coolest thing. I think there it is right there in the thumbnail. You can see it. And that color gradient on the right is the entire spine. In fact, Jared Yates, I'm going to tag Jared Yates. Whoop, boom. I'm sorry, I'm talking there. I'm actually going to tag Jared Yates in this because he's a graphic designer, and I think he would find this. This is too cool. If you know a graphic designer, share it with them, because anyone who's done graphics or graphic work before has worked with CMYK, and it's super cool to see how an artist has done this, including the gradients. It's trippy how they did the gradients with yarn, man. So I highly recommend you check that out. It'll stimulate your right brain and get you thinking creatively. Let's talk about how to use gravitational lenses to bounce radio signals to other star systems. You heard me correctly. Scientists right now are trying to answer a very specific question, and I love this. Again, I'm trying to expand your reality. No, State of the Spark isn't necessarily astrophysicists. We're just nerds, and we love it. Gravitational lenses could allow us to have a galaxy-wide internet, if not an actual interstellar internet. Hold on, let me close this. Joe Child says, grateful to have family in town. Oh, family's so good. Grateful to have family in town and the opportunity to work remotely. For those who don't know, Dr. Childs, one of the most credentialed coaches, we're talking about coaching today, one of the most credentialed coaches, consultants that I have had the honor to work around. And Joe, I had family in town this past weekend as well. It was just very rich. She even actually helped me work out a kink in my back. It was fantastic. And we both share the opportunity to work remotely. It is such a blessed world to be able to get on an airplane, serve someone with your valuable life experience, and get compensated fairly and justly for that, and make an impact in the landscape of society. It's fantastic stuff. So I'm grateful that you shared that this morning. So real quick, currently, all interplanetary communications from Earth to the Moon, from Earth to Mars, in the foreseeable future, it's going to be done by radio waves. And those radio waves work the best because we can get a lot of data with a very low power output. And that's kind of why radio has been the default for us in our planetary system. As we start getting past the Oort cloud and past the Kuiper belt, past the Kuiper belt and ultimately the Oort cloud. The Kuiper belt is a belt of asteroids that exists between us and our nearest planet. So we're talking about the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, not Pluto, but it's still there. All of these planets and planetoids out there, radio signal and radio communication is going to get more and more difficult. So scientists are trying to study how to do this. Now, they've thought about doing this with laser pointing and laser light. And laser light could probably get this done, especially within our own solar system. But we can't easily focus, and that might work if we have a starship traveling to Alpha Centauri. We could just point light and actually have an internet at light speed to Alpha Centauri. But what if we actually needed a network, a Wi-Fi internet network, so that we had a ship going to Alpha Centauri or a ship going to Jupiter and a ship going to Uranus, and as they were traveling to these places, we just needed ubiquitous internet. Imagine traveling interstellar and not being able to Google, how do I patch that leak into space? Sure, we've got duct tape, but actually being able to science things and using the body of knowledge that is the internet is actually a significant challenge. So scientists are now proposing we can push radio waves to these interstellar places, but the wavelength is so large and not compressed, it's hard to focus the information stream in a certain area. So what they're proposing is this. They're actually proposing to use the gravity wells of stars and large planetary bodies, because if this microphone is a star, the radio wavelength might be broadening, but as it comes close, gravity pulls the wavelength closer and compresses the wavelength. And that wavelength compression could allow us to actually target it as it came around the sun. We could actually target it to specific locations and ultimately create what for us would be a Wi-Fi network, interplanetary and maybe even interstellarly. And if we could get the body of humans' knowledge in other places in space, our species is more likely to thrive in other areas of the universe. So there you have it. Let me give you this quick link. Boom. Big time nerd alert. I was actually daydreaming with Joe Childs once about actually starting an interplanetary business consortium to work out interplanetary business law. Who owns it? What are the actual people that govern the body of knowledge? Because countries won't own things the same way. Is Earth and Mars two different species? Are they two different governing bodies? Are they one governing body? I would love to actually explore that one day and get ahead of something like that. It'd be super fun. So that, my friends, is a bit of elevated other news. Let's talk about the four things business investors know about coaching in order to help us normalize coaching so there's no stigma. So here's the problem. You see, today, there's an entire new era of how we see our landscape. In fact, from a leadership perspective, there's an entire strata of old world leaders. And these are people leading our businesses, leading our governments, leading our city government. They're basically the institutions, and though there have been a large volume of young blood coming up in the investor class, which is awesome, it's a large part of Silicon Valleyites and technophiles. Joe Child says DeFi type of DeFi, a type of interplanetary governance. We should totally talk about DeFi, a type of interplanetary governance. I would actually love to explore that idea, my man. That's from Joe Childs. Again, we're just brainstorming here. So the problem today is that there's an entire layer of skilled, very skilled employee class and small business owner class. They have more coding skills, more engineering skills, more STEM. We're kind of sick of this term, or STEAM, but the leadership and experience is void in their world. However, this generation has a streak of independence unlike anything I've ever seen. And I believe it's being compounded and worsened, if you will, by the myth of the solo founder, the myth of the independently willed founder. And though that is independence and assertiveness are definitely traits of really good founders, creativity is. But if you look behind the screen, one of the #1 skills of successful founders, successful ideators, and no, I'm not talking about Elon Musk. No, I'm not talking about Steve Jobs. I'm talking about those people that have been able to marshal the horde of talent that it takes to actually make a win. Leadership. They're few and far between. There's a whole generational layer of skilled, ambitious, STEAM-driven entrepreneurs who are starting their businesses, but are resistant to older generations speaking into their lives more than in previous generations, I dare say. Similarly, the old guard generation that's in charge, this old guard generation doesn't even value. They just want the skills. They want the commodity of labor. They want the thought labor, but they don't necessarily want the input of this rebellious generation. Let's take a pause real quick. Joe Child says, boom, create a platform to match rising techno talent with coaching for leadership development. Joe, remember when I came to you a few weeks ago and talked to you about the resurgence of State of the Spark? That's what I want to build. And that's why we're talking about coaching more and more today. This is what we need to meet on, because this is actually State of the Spark 3.0. This is where we're going, my man. Absolutely. This is why I like people like Joe, because we're always on the same page, man, and stuff's percolating the same way. I love it. So this gap is a challenge. And though Joe's idea is exactly where I ultimately want to go with State of the Spark, there's additional stigma. So if coaching is being made available, there's still a few counterpoints that culturally I think we need to tackle. And internally, I think we need to tackle so that we can normalize the idea of coaching. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today. So Stephen Covey actually said this: there is a deep, innate, almost inexpressible yearning within each one of us to find our own voice in life. That was from Stephen Covey's The 8th Habit. Joe Child. Yes, this is what I'm talking about. Joe Child says, boom, I'll be one of your old guard innovators. Let's do it. That's what we're doing. That's what this year and next year's all about, Joe. That's what's going to be happening right there. I'll be one of your old guard innovators and coaches. So Stephen Covey said there's a deep, innate, almost inexpressible yearning within each one of us to find our voice in life. And this is true. You know it's true. You wake up, and if you're depressed, quite often you're depressed because you crave to find and express your own voice. If you're pumped because you feel like you have an avenue to express your own voice. State of the Spark's mission is igniting lives of explosive significance, and this is the year State of the Spark focuses on coaching. But we're going to be facing this major problem, this dual problem of a coaching generational gap, where the older generation does want to see the next generation succeed, but they don't really know how to communicate it. The young generation has a lot of ideas, skills, talent, and they see the landscape in a much better way, but they resist any sort of coaching. And I am calling on this today. You heard it on this show first. I'm calling on investors, municipal leadership, like actual city leaders, and business leaders to take coaching mainstream for its commitment to helping small business owners grow. That sounds sublime, but I think people who are experienced know that this is a very prominent problem. I'm calling on investors, municipal owners, and business leaders to take coaching mainstream, to give the next generation the support they need to create a richer small business layer. In fact, our current small business layer is not very resilient. They're making bad first-time decisions. They're hiring slow. They're hiring too quickly and firing too fast. They're making poor decisions on financing. They're making poor internal decisions on how to be a leader. So there's internal and external factors, and it's not just the business factors. So I want to cover the 4 things very quickly that investors talk about when they talk about their small business owners that they're investing in, that what they know and the gap we need to fill. Number 1, less than 50% of a small business owner's issues are business. Let me say that again. Less than 50% of a small business owner's issues are business. Maybe those issues are that the small business owner is dealing with cancer or poor health, or maybe their spouse is dealing with cancer. Maybe they're having family problems. Maybe they're in an entire new industry and they're dealing with insecurities. Maybe they're dealing with imposter syndrome. Maybe they're dealing with past hurts. Maybe they're dealing with past partnership failures and they're just completely afraid of partnering. In general, you could bucket all of this as just general insecurities. Maybe these small business owners are just insecure. This is what investors know. Investors know that they are investing in the full person. When an investor in Silicon Valley funds a business, they assess the business. It's got to have a valid business model. But we know that their business ideas, good business ideas, are a dime a dozen. It's not the business. Investors in Silicon Valley will tell you we invest in the jockey. We invest in the founder running that business. Joe Child says, yes, they need to release all of that baggage. They need to process this baggage. And an investor is not skilled. Investors are just different types of business partners. They have different set of skills. Investors have their own baggage. They have their own drama. They're dealing with their own issues like cancer and family problems and insecurities and fears and hurts. They're just a different type of business. They just happen to have a lot of cash. You have a similar business partner in a developer or a coder who's on your team dealing with family drama, can't find a home, don't know what school to put their kids in, dealing with their own overweight, obesity because they're working at coding all the time. Joe says, yes, they need to release all of that baggage or at least process it and contextualize it. And investors know that when they invest in a business, yes, of course, it's got to have a valid business model. But even if it has a valid business model, then they're investing in the founder. They're investing in the person. They're investing in the quality of that person. And we need to know that this type of baggage is normal to the human experience. Often we think that, oh no, like if I have to have you coach or if we have to deal with this baggage, you're a broken person. That's not true. Well, if you're dealing with suicidal thoughts and depression, that's unhealth. But it's normal. to be dealing with cancer and family drama and getting your kids in school and your own fears and insecurities. These are normal to people pushing into new environments. Investors know that less than 50% of a small business owner's issues are business. And if you're experiencing highs and lows in your home life as a small business owner, that's okay and normal. Get a coach to support you. Here's the second thing investors know about coaching. Investors know that there is a very high ROI, or what I'm calling return on coaching. That's not my term. Other people have been using this term. ROI, return on coaching. There's improvements that a coach could do for a small business owner that investors are very aware of. Investors are very aware that a coach can help a founder or a small business owner shorten the learning cycle. As I said, what if you hired slow and right the first time? What if you fired that bad employee within a month instead of letting them linger for 18 months? I've done this. What if you could have more honest conversations with stakeholders because a founder wasn't hiding in their fears? They got with their coach, and their coach really walked them through the landscape of honesty and how they could be honest about the challenges they're having with the company. Maybe you could rally the investors quicker so that the investors were going through their contact list and bringing in additional support. You could bring more discipline. The physical and mental health of your founders is critical. What if a coach could actually work, not as an investor would work, but work with the founder to get them to help meditate, to get them to be disciplined before and after work, to focus on their family issues, and to keep work at work? Or if it was grind time, to work through the weekend and help them work with their family and spouse to set proper expectations about the early years of a founding. Investors know this. And if investors in Silicon Valley know this, shouldn't you know this as a small business owner? That there is a high return on coaching, because if you can shorten the learning cycle, if you can hire slow but make the right hire, if you could fire fast and get rid of that person, you could be saving and invest. This is what investors know about their investments that they wish small business owners would know. Improving on these mistakes the first time would save small business owners hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in the early days, and get to the $1 million mark more quickly. The longer it takes you to get to that $500,000 milestone, to that $1 million milestone as a startup, the more difficult your learning cycle is, because you slowly get mired in your past bad decisions. Investors know this. Investors know this. The third thing investors know, boom. The third thing investors know is that we have to eliminate the stigma of coaching for founders. Investors know this, so much so that more and more investment organizations are funding and underwriting coaching in large metropolitan centers. It's just part of the line item that they're funding, and they might even choose the coach for you. You see, the current thought is this amongst a lot of the young generation of small business owners coming up. Coaches and counselors are selling the same snake oil in their mind. If I need a counselor, I'm broken. If I need a coach, I'm broken. Now, this stigma on mental health has been around since the beginning of counseling, since the beginning of coaching. The current thought is, if I need a coach, I'm not as good as I need to be. So if I'm surrounded by partners, if I'm surrounded by by my employees, if I'm surrounded by my friends and family, and they see I have a counselor, I must be doing something wrong, and they're going to judge me and leave me. If they see that I have a coach, they're going to believe that I'm just pissing my money away because I'm broken, and shouldn't I know all the answers anyway? Shouldn't I know all the answers anyway? No, my dear small business friend. You don't. We need to be having more open conversations about where things are at. We need to give your small business owners a chance to shine. This is what investors know. Investors know that all professionals have coaches. You've heard me say once, you'll hear me say it 1,000,000 times. Tiger Woods had a swing coach. Jordan had a three-point coach. He had a passing coach. They have coaches for everything. Is this just a luxury of the rich? No. In every corner of your business, you either need a vendor, a 1099 who's doing it for you, or you need a coach by your side to help you make the right decisions. And again, if over 50% of the drama going on around you is internal and not business oriented, it might be external, but it's not business oriented. You need a coach to give you perspective who is not being emotionally triggered by the other 50%, by any of it, who can see it with a rational mind. This is why Tiger Woods had a swing coach. Tiger Woods, his head is in the game. He's emotional. He's deep in it. And he sometimes needs a swing coach to come up from the sidelines and give him his view. Hey, this is what the green is doing. This is how I think you should do your putt. And it might be a whole new train of thought to help de-escalate the emotion and get into the professional headspace. But guess what? You don't need millions of dollars for a coach. Coaches don't cost that much. Investors know that the return on coaching, the ROC, is extraordinarily high, and that anyone who seeks to be a professional will start with coaching. This isn't a line item that comes way later in the business. This is, you should have a coach at every juncture. Professional or investors know that all small business owners have it. So the fourth thing investors know is this. Investors know that we need to lead by example. So what can be done? I believe that city leaders, business leaders, teachers, investors need to be seen using their own coaches. I know this about Joe Childs. Joe Childs went and got certified in NLP coaching recently. In fact, Joe just jumps in here and says, there's a trend in SV to brag about how much results you are getting from your coach. This is huge. SV, am I missing what SV is? Oh, maybe venture capital. I'm not really sure. What is SV? I'd love to know. There is a trend in SV to brag about how much results you're getting from your coach. This is an awesome trend. This is an awesome trend that we're actually starting to see people brag on. Hey, I was with a coach and my coach did X, Y, and Z. So what can be done? We should brag on the results we're getting from our coaching. We should have city leaders post, hey, I have a coach, hashtag I have a coach, and take photos and selfies that they're at coffee with their coach. Business leaders should take photos that, hey, I was speaking to my coach the other day and they said this and it was phenomenal. Investors, this investors level class that we're idolizing, what investors know, Silicon Valley. Thank you, Joe. Joe says SB says Silicon Valley. There's a trend in Silicon Valley to brag about how much results you are getting from your coach. Silicon Valley, boom, that's phenomenal. But it's moving too slowly and it needs to accelerate. Why not make a coach available to a city council? If you have legal counsel, if you have the treasurer of the city, if you have the tax collector of the city, do you have a city coach? And they coach city council to make good decisions on behalf of the city. Why not always have a coach on hand in your small business incubator? Applause to Catapult Lakeland, who has just hired Tim Cox recently, I believe, to be an on-hand coach to the entire body at Catapult. All the small business owners can just queue him up and line up with him. Why not always have a line item expense on your business plan for a coach? Just a few ideas, and use the hashtag I have a coach. Let's normalize this thing, because I foresee an entire generation. I envision an entire generation of young people, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, who are graduating high school, who are getting into college, who are questioning the value of college, but are extraordinarily gifted with coding and engineering already, just because of their upbringing. But these people, though we look at them and think, wow, they've got it all together. No, they have a skill because they played Minecraft and Roblox young, but now that they're graduating, they're still lost and still need the other intrinsic coaching in their life to help that idea. Do they have better business ideas? Absolutely. They don't know how to hire. They don't know how to speak to teams. They don't know how to fire. They don't know how to market. They don't know how to do a lot of things. They don't know how to manage the family dynamics. They don't know how to buy a home. They don't know how to manage stress. All they know how to do is sit, code, engineer, eat, or the opposite. Maybe they've gone the craft route and they've avoided STEM, and maybe they're doing a craft food business. Maybe they're doing a craft mechanic shop. They don't know how to manage their tech people. They don't know how to speak to their team. They don't know how to manage stress. We need to lead by example. And just as Joe pointed out, investors in Silicon Valley, investors and founders in Silicon Valley are bragging now. about the benefits and the results they're getting from their coaching. So what investors know is this: there is a ton of stigma to push through. But if coaching becomes normalized in small business development, I believe that we will see a much more resilient small business owner class. I believe that investors should be investing not only in tech, but in the peripheral businesses like a coaching business or like coaching businesses that support our founders. I believe we will see serious NASDAQ listings in the next 5 to 10 years of coaching companies that provide services to ensure an ROC, a return on coaching. So those are the 4 things investors know, my friends. Number 1, less than 50% of small business owners' issues are business oriented. There is a high return on coaching if you can shorten the learning cycle and actually make better decisions the first go around. We need to eliminate the stigma so small business owners can make the most of their coaching, and we need to lead by example. So do you have a coach? If you have a coach, I want to see about it. Post hashtag I have a coach, or sitting with my coach or something, and tag me in it so I can be encouraged and see that, wow, more and more people are getting coaching and we are creating a more resilient small business owner class. Listen, if you need any help at all, visit us at stateofthespark.com. If you want to carry on the conversation, by all means, let's carry on the conversation at the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group, where we talk about small business issues and coaching and leveling up. But remember, no matter what you do today, remember the mission: igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. Have a phenomenal day.